Hello to everyone tuning in. My name is Nikolay. I'm leading the production department at Fulqrum Publishing, and I'm also a humble servant of the elder ones from the great beyond. I welcome you all to today's podcast slash interview with Jean Oral, the ominous mastermind of interactive horror himself. And we'll be discussing his cool games, their origins, and the message behind them, if there's one that is, of course, as a part of the Land of the Crescent Games from Turkey event. So, hi Jean, how are you doing?
Hey, sir. I'm really good, and it's great to, get in touch with you in such an event. Thanks a lot, like being the host, like for this part, and like I'm very curious about your questions, actually.
I'll try not to disappoint you, and yeah, I'm really happy to be at the event as well. So, to start off, I think it makes sense to recap the games you have been working on, since probably some people in our audience have only heard about those. Some of them played, of course, but there's also enough people that will get acquainted with your work thanks to our conversation today, I think. So, if you allow me, I'll do it.
Yeah, please, please. I'd like to
Okay.
listen. Like, what kind of trouble have I caused?
Okay. So, you are the creative director and also a lead writer, and also a person that was wearing many hats during the development of process of Stygian. Computer RPG of Loss and Madness, heavily influenced by the works of H.P. Lovecraft, set in its own unique universe with recognizable themes, characters, and events, especially recognizable for people such as myself, those who are familiar with Lovecraft novellas. And also The Cats and the Other Lives, which is something absolutely drastically different. I would probably call it more of a visual novel or interactive fiction game, where you play as a cat called Aspen that is witnessing the reunion of a broken family. And it also feels Lovecraftian, but ultimately focuses more on humans and their own tragedies rather than the supernatural horror. And I suggest us to start from discussing Stygian and then move to cats. But
Of course.
before that, I simply have to ask you, where's the name of the studio comes from? Like Cultic Games. I assume that you consider yourself and the team as a cult.
Oh, like first of all, like it might be true, not in the sense of like we're into like practicing strange esoteric stuff. Like we do it in our free time, not while we're working, so to speak. But strangely, like it has nothing to do with Stygian. It has nothing to do with Stygian. Yeah, it is strange because like with Barış Sılay, a writer friend of mine, you know him personally as well. And like we were working on a board game actually, a couple of years prior to Stygian, and like at that time, like I have come up with the name like Cultic Games. I don't know. I don't know. Like that game was a lo-fi like game of before Game of Thrones, but like Game of Thrones like let's say low fantasy setting, a strategy game, board game, like nothing to do with Stygian, but still like the team was called Cultic Games. And like when I formed a new team, I gave them the chance. I told them, okay, like this name was belonging to the board game team. Now we are making video games, like this is our game, like Stygian, Reign of the Old Ones. If you want a renaming of the team or company, like it should be fine with me. And they said that no, Cultic Games is great. It really fits the team. So like it stayed with me, and like we continued. And I know like the Cultic Games name and Stygian license IP seems like a perfect match, but like it happened by chance. It did not happen by choice.
Well, miracle happens, I guess.
Yeah.
You're not.
Nico, I'm very sorry, sir. Like, is this sound fine? Everything's cool? Okay, great,
No.
perfect.
Okay, so we continue. Well, I just wanted to say that hopefully you guys are not sacrificing people, or well, at least not too often.
Like we have strange stories, but like nothing that extreme. Let's keep it that way.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay. You'll tell me afterwards sometime. Okay, I know that you're coming from the video production and filming background. I know that you were studying as director, and also I know that mostly because I saw your viral video that you made for Stygian. Just wanted to ask, like, where all of these ideas and how this video came to be, pretty much. Like, it was so cool.
Which video?
The viral video, where the events
Okay,
and
that one. Right.
breaking news, Cthulhu attacks and stuff.
Oh man, like when you develop a game, especially when you market a game, you find yourself in a very, very miserable, very desperate situation because like there are millions of billions of games out there, and you know that like you and your team have worked incredibly hard to put together that experience, and like you feel like if you do not do everything within your capacity to market that game, it would be the doom of everyone involved. With that kind of a mentality, you think about every fucking talent you have at hand and combine all your resources to, create some kind of an effect on people. So like for many times, also for Cats and the Other Lives, I've returned to my filmmaking roots in order to, create some havoc in society. And, that video, it was, you can see a younger version of me, less white hair for sure. And somehow, made that video being watched by 500,000 people. Yeah, like for that one it worked, and if you are some kind of a person who hang around over the, let's say, buttocks or darker side of internet, you always see what kinds of things attract people. When you see that pattern, like you create stuff like that, and when people fall to that trap, it works. So it was like always, like if I return, Nico, it also happened with Kickstarter. If I return to my filmmaking roots, you should understand that I'm in trouble. So it was out of desperation, like we did our best, and also like always I had some really cool friends who are talented enough to help me, and good enough to help me. That's also how it works.
I mean, knowing you as a person, you're always coming up with some cool and creative things, and I'm not just talking about the gameplay here. You and I were just a few minutes ago reminiscing about the cultists marching around the halls of Gamescom. That was a freaking cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, like I rarely think about marketing really, but when I can focus myself on it, yeah, I also see it as like some kind of a creative aspect for sure. Because when you develop a game, you create some kind of a simulation for other people to be a part of, and while you're marketing, you're also doing the same. Marketing is creating a universe out of a lie or either some kind of a altered truth, and like make other people fall in it. So it's not that different from DMing a role-playing game scenario. It's not that different from making a game. So like yeah, our problem is we do not have enough manpower.
Oh, ain't that always a problem, right?
Yeah. That's
always a problem. Yeah, I mentioned the like not only the marketing interesting ideas that you can come up with, there's also like breaking the fourth wall in game, but I think I'm getting ahead of myself, so we'll probably discuss this later, how you did it in Stygian. And
I'm excited. I'm excited.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, let's go to Stygian finally. As a huge fan of Lovecraft and also RPG games in general, having those both elements combined in one project for me was like a match made in heaven. Even though, yeah, even though you and I would know each other for a long time now, I never got to ask you how you came about with the idea of making your own interactive entrance into the world of our old Howard Phillips Lovecraft. What made you make Stygian?
All right. Like actually, the moment was pretty clear to me. I was playing Wasteland 2 by In Exile Entertainment, and I knew that like it was the product of a Kickstarter project. Like I was very aware of it. I mean, I was shooting films back then, but I always had an extreme interest in not only games generally, but how games were made, like by which company, at which year. Like I was some kind of a geek about, you know, that process. So like I was very well informed about like the differences in, let's say, the design decisions in RPGs, because like those days Mass Effect was like really big. People were, you know, just abandoning old school RPGs. Now they're not called old school because like Baldur's Gate 3 made old school pretty new school again,
New school.
without changing anything in the fucking formula. So it's new school. So like Baldur's Gate 3 still shows that, you know, that kind of a design philosophy is not retro. It's not outdated. You know, it just, you know, needs the money and the talent and the expertise and the time to shine again. And I was playing Wasteland 2, and in a way, I felt that something could be done, you know, in a very, let's say, hubris, with some kind of hubris. I can only, you know, call it as hubris. I said, you know, apart from space opera tropes and post-nuclear tropes, because like Fallout, the first two Fallout games, they were extremely well done when it comes to the post-nuclear kind of a setting. So like I felt, and you know, I have very good friends over in Exile, but I felt that, you know, something could be done outside those tropes. And when I started thinking about it, Lovecraft's 1920s like suddenly appeared in my mind. Like there were many reasons for that. One of the reasons was I knew that it didn't have any kind of an IP that, you know, we have to like somehow hire. It was in Creative Commons at the time for a couple of years. Also, like since I read Lovecraft at 5th grade around the age of 10, like something has changed in me forever since that moment. So like, you know, it was more or less like something that has been carved into my subconsciousness. But I said, all right, 1920s, Cthulhu mythos, but an old school RPG. So instead of like, there's a ranger, there's the investigator, there's not the mage, but you know, there is the occultist. And it suddenly started appearing in my mind that I exit the game and I started writing. It was something in between, and I didn't know what a pitch document was at that time, but it was something in between a design document and a pitch document. And most of those texts stayed in the game design document 6 years later. And most of those texts were used in the Kickstarter campaign. So like when it started manifesting, like it really stayed with me. And like when I had the chance to make it 5 or 6 years later, then I written the first, like the prior document. Like almost nothing was changed in either the archetypes or the main statistics and stuff like that. So yeah, it was like my personal answer to the CRPGs that I have grown up with, but you know, in a new perspective, that would you know really make me happy as a player. First and
Okay, you
foremost.
wanted to do things differently, I guess, because Stygian is touching familiar themes and topics, but like kind of differently, and like there's a new approach to the world design, first of all, and like there are new mechanics that, first of all, I haven't seen in my life anywhere, like the angst, for instance, and these were like a breath of fresh air, I guess.
Look, so good to hear it because you know at the release I wasn't that happy with the like condition of Stygian. But at the same time, you know, throughout years, I was talking with a friend today, and you know, I'm still very much amazed, you know, how people embrace that game. Like the emails that I got about that game, and you know, people communicating me concerning that game. Like it's a wonderful feeling. Like people never abandoned that game actually.
Not bad for a first one, right?
Yeah, that is very true. That is very true.
Okay. So since you kind of touched base on the ranger characters and the other kind of characters, I was wondering, there are a lot of pre-made characters in Stygian by default, like the occultist, the soldier, the performer, and the other classes. I was thinking if maybe there is a canon character, that the character that you personally was thinking about when crafting the game.
No, not at all. The game was really crafted as thinking for an anonymous kind of a player character. So like there
Hmm.
is no preset or there is no recommended. Like I try to do my best with that game, and like I put a lot of things into that game. But like one of the very few things that I'm really happy about myself in that game is like it doesn't hold any sides when it comes to the class, gender, background, quest decisions. Like even for a content that would have been chosen by only 5% or 3% of our players, we put the same fucking amount to the content. It didn't matter. So like it's a very, very much democratic game. Although it's a dystopia, it's like direct democracy. And even if you have just one vote, it counts in Stygian. It's like one of the few things that I'm pretty proud of because like you should be crazy to do something like that. If we had collected any kind of analytics, and you know, some of my developers told me that it might be a good idea to collect analytics, but you know, in an RPG game, when I see myself in a situation that like because of the choice that I made in a dialogue or a quest, if I suddenly see myself connected to the main branch with just one line of dialogue, I would feel cheated. You know what I mean? So like I didn't want to learn about the analytics. If I had known that like that choice or that character or that spell is being chosen for just 2% of the players or just 1% of the players, game development is always prioritization. You know what I mean? Of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course
So
it is.
like through prioritization, while I was getting rid of the weight to keep the balloon flying, that 1%, 2% content would have like lost all its, you know, meaning. That's why I didn't want to learn, and that's why like we tried to keep things as anonymous as possible to create breathing space for all kinds of role-playing options.
And you managed to do that. I'll be honest with you, I was almost always playing as a detective, few times an occultist, but I never ever played as an aristocrat. And only I think, few weeks or maybe months after Stygian released, I tried it, and I was so surprised that you actually have another companion right from the
Yeah,
get-go, and I never knew it even exists.
really? Yeah,
Yeah, baffled me.
that game is pretty surprising, man. Yeah. What about the explorer? Like he starts with
The
his
dog.
or her own dog. Yeah, Winston.
Yeah, yeah.
Winston.
Winston.
Because I
Winston.
used to smoke Winston cigarettes while I was smoking. That's why. Yeah, he's called Winston
Uh-huh.
actually.
Okay, how about Werner then? He's also marking the
Werner,
cigarettes or
I
something?
think Barış. I think Barış came up with Werner.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Also, Barış wrote like most of Werner's dialogues.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, cool character nevertheless. I
Yeah,
also
yeah,
know
I
Barish
love it as well.
Was working on Sonya Green card, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Sonia Green Carter, and he worked on almost all the environmental descriptions and item descriptions. Yeah, like it was a huge task. There are many items in that game.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite character, I told you many times about this, like my favorite companion was the nameless soldier. Like, always felt that he's a very mysterious figure. I don't want to give any spoilers, but yeah, uh, I don't know. I kind of find some mystery in World War One, the events that happened back then, and like the traumatizing experience people had to endure and characters like that really fascinated me. And Nameless
Yeah, man.
Soldier
Like
was
you
touching
know
on
what? You know
something.
what? Like it especially writing I I also feel the same. You know, in some games like Cats and the Other Lives, I had the chance to like go over the whole narrative many times. Like there were other people contributing. I was like always observing like what was going on. I always like had an idea about the structure of the story, and like I went through it many times. So like I it was like more mathematics at some stage. But for Stygian, since I also like had very little writing time, apart from my duties at the office, I remember writing weekends at home. Like in different mental stages according to the time of the day. And I was always writing. So like for
Hmm.
outsider, like I spent around 3 days writing the whole character, and for nameless soldier, at most 4 days, maybe
Hmm.
2 days. Like Saturday, Sunday, soldier
Done.
is done. So the thing is, in the other games or like in the scripts that I've written for film, I had the time to like revise and revise again, other draft, etc. For that game, it was like more or less when you get to the source, like when you can really become nameless soldier, to an extent you have to. Otherwise, like you cannot be that character. Like it was always acting too. Writing is very much acting for me. So,
So,
like, when you get into that mind state of an 18-year-old guy who is dead, like, who used to work at his father's, like, newspaper stand and love the baker's daughter and, hang around Arkham in its, like, let's say, glory days, like, when you can get into his, like, cocoon. So
mhm.
it was just some kind of a flow. So like I was, because of the time constraint, because of like all those other elements and stressful elements as well,
Hmm.
they're still new to me as well because it happened so fast, and it was proofread, it was revised, it was into the game. I never had the chance, apart from like some kind of a bug or something, to return to the character. So like I sometimes feel I was also used as some kind of a medium for the
Hmm.
characters to speak inside the game. So like they're also new to me still. They're also interesting to me still.
That's
I
really
hope
something
I
strange.
hope I hope I summarized it correctly.
Yeah, you did, but still. That's really something strange to hear from someone who's written all the things, and especially the characters. That it's something new to you.
Otherwise, like it's impossible. Otherwise, like you would really start questioning yourself, like what the fuck am I doing after 16 hours of writing? The only way you can continue doing that is staying in that mind state, and like
Okay.
it could only happen through like role playing that character. So like when you get into the flow,
Hmm.
you also like surprise yourself creatively.
Yeah, I guess so. To try it out, I have to write my own Stygian, I guess, eventually.
So good luck to everyone involved. Really, good
Oh
luck to
yeah,
everyone
oh yeah,
involved.
oh yeah. True that.
Yeah.
True that. Okay. So my next question probably. Stygian contains of a lot of unique writing that is inspired by Lovecraft works in general, but also contains elements taken directly from these novellas. These elements are nicely reimagined, blend in well in the game. Like, for instance, the whole Migo encounter shares a lot
Mhm.
of the Whisper in the Darkness, one of
Very true.
my all time favorite novellas, along with, as you know, Beyond the Mountains of Madness.
Yeah,
And I was wondering
I love it as
if
well.
there, yeah, these are cool. And I was wondering if there are other similar references that I did not notice in the game, or maybe there was something that you have planned but eventually did not make it into the full release.
All right. The whole Miskatonic University chapter, sir. There is the
Okay.
Professor Peabody. There is the Professor Peabody, like one of the university professors that like contributed to the Miskatonic expedition to the Antarctic. There is his drilling device, his drilling apparatus, were planned to be like some kind of a quest item.
Hmm.
A lot of reference to the Shoggoth protoplasma because like in a in some kind of a uh, like parallel element to At the Mountains of Madness, one of the characters returned to Arkham with a sample of Shoggoth protoplasm, and like
Hmm.
it somehow inhabits that character, so they become one, and like he starts experimenting on the protoplasm, and like when Black Day happens, like everything goes to shit, and Shoggoth, like a horror movie of
Hmm.
like Alien, hunts them one by one. So like almost all the university is being devoured. Only a few professors survive, and they lock themselves in their own rooms, I guess. And out of eating, you remember seeing those red mushrooms
Oh yeah.
and vein
Hmm.
fauna and flora like around the Arkham. Since like they had no food and out of survival they start eating those, and it's not good for the health. So yeah, so like that whole section has a lot of references to At the Mountains of Madness for sure, Miskatonic.
So you pretty much continued the story. Dyer's expedition returned,
Yeah,
brought something along with
yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Like it was the thing that we tried to do throughout the whole game, like Outsider. For example, we meet Outsider just a few weeks or a few months later, the end of his story, the
Hmm.
Outsider. He leaves the castle because like we know that the story is in some kind of a dreamlands. I mean, I have no idea about this. Like Lovecraft, as far as I know, never confirmed this. But the story Outsider for me is a dreamland story, out of many reasons. And so like I considered like when he left the castle, he also left his domain, like the domains in Ravenloft, so
Hmm.
to speak, and like he gets lost in the mists until he finds, and he also gets lost in time and space until he finds Arkham. because Arkham is also lost in time and space at that time because of the Black Day. So yeah, like we as the player encounter, control what happens after Outsider's story ends. And the broadcasting room gave me 10-minute alert. Yeah, man.
Okay, come on.
Two Lovecraft maniac. When two Lovecraft maniacs meet, I mean, yeah, time flies by.
Too little time. Too little time. Too many things to discuss.
Definitely.
Okay, well, maybe we just should touch base about cats because we're talking about Stygian mostly.
Yeah.
Like one thing, I was going through the feedback reports on Steam for cats and really liked how someone summarized the cats in the other lives. They fall into the story-rich emotional sphere of indie games, which are type of games that are more felt than actually played. And Stygian was, in my at least the way I felt, it was the other way around, which varies gameplay mechanics. So I was wondering why cats ended up being the way they are, like more of a narrative thing.
Oh, out of many reasons actually. First of all, like after like such a complex, first of all, like at the creation of Cultic games, I always had the idea to work on a big title and a small title and a big title again and a small title again. Like one of the reasons was the possibility of burnout. One of the reasons was to like play with a different, like some kind of a medium and stuff like that. But like at the beginning of the cats, like I was more or less a little bit cautious towards another really heavy mechanically driven game. And I also wanted to see what happens to the players and like what they feel when a Cultic games production story-wise really like concludes itself. I wanted to see that because like with Stygian, I saw like what happens when I somehow create some ideas and like put like some emotions into the hearts and minds of the players. But like in Stygian, I never had the chance to really see the catharsis, like the after effects of like all those moments that I created. So like one of my urges was making a game and completing it when it comes to the story, like living in a state that like nothing more needs to be said apart from the obvious question marks that were chosen to be left there. So yeah, like out of many reasons, and you know, production wise it would have been not possible at that time to work on like such a complex game because of the burnout of Stygian and you know all of its aftermath. So like it seemed like the obvious choice to do something more minimal, to do something more story wise.
Okay, but there was still a thing, a proper closure, which I'm not gonna delve too much into, but you know what I'm talking about. This kind of contradicts with what you just said a bit, but still it's really, really, really cool. Okay, I'm not sure if we have enough time to discuss anything else.
Yeah, 5 minutes, they say. 5 minutes, they say.
Okay, well then let's get to the breaking of the fourth wall that I mentioned at the very beginning of our conversation. I know you like to do it.
Actually, it happens with both games, I guess, because it might be a question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, it happens with both games, exactly. Stygian Asylum Scene, for instance, it was the first time I got to experience that myself in your games, obviously. Then Cats Will and Eunice, the conversation, the cosmic overlord controls their
Yeah.
actions and stuff like that. Through cats,
Yeah.
through cats,
Yeah.
and of
Yeah.
course the like my all-time personal favor since the Steam Festival demo you showed me, the mouse cursor and the red light thing.
Yeah.
These are also
Hmm.
cleverly done, and I'm just curious where you get the inspiration for such things, and like what are you trying to achieve with those things as a writer? Two things.
Uh, like, you remember, like we had a recent conversation about like art and simulation, and like I expressed something like each art form, every art piece in the world is like some kind of a like rebellion against the persisting reality. So like for me, more or less, like, and as a game developer, designer, storyteller, interactive storyteller, yeah, like you name it, uh, it's always about like observing the structure of your environment, of the like social environment of the world, and thinking about those, duplicating those in your, you know, simulations. And like when you start thinking that way, you also like somehow try to question things. And that questioning more or less like pushes you towards like if you're somehow seeing a character being controlled by a player 8 hours a day, every day, you start associating yourself, a human being, as a game character. It comes really easy. And like when you start making that correlation, a lot of interesting, you know, ideas and a lot of interesting links you start to see
Hmm.
in you know how life, the elements of life is connected with each other. I guess. I guess. So I believe like most artists do that, knowingly or unknowingly, but since games are such a cool medium to show people that they're also some kind of an interactive element in their environment, I guess it's more rewarding and easier to play with those ideas.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Although it's always amazing when you notice something like that. I can tell you the truth. In Stygian, I didn't notice it from the first attempt. Again, not going into any kind of spoilers, but when I actually realized, I felt like, oh my God, I need to contact John and like tell him that it's so freaking cool.
Yeah, like you mean the asylum scene in Stygian?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, like
Okay.
for me, but you know, it really resonated with you, but that scene also like it was very contradictory for many players, Nico.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, because like
Why?
because they were so invested in the reality of Arkham, of the like post Doomsday, post Black Day Arkham, that they did not want to face another reality that tired and like that late inside the game's narrative. So like it was very charming for some, but it was very problematic for another crowd as well. Strangely, yeah.
Strangely
But
indeed,
yeah,
I
like
was not anticipating.
even if I could go back in time and you know had the chance to alter it, I would not change it at all.
Yeah, because it's perfect the way it is.
Thank
Like
you.
really.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you. I guess fear at the end of our time because they're signing me.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for the conversation, sir. It's always a
I
pleasure, and I
thank you.
think it was also entertaining and probably educating for those who was watching us. So, guys, enjoy the event. Get some cool games. Play Stygian, play Cats in the Other Lives, and who knows? Maybe one day we'll, sort of sit down again and talk some more.
I sincerely hope so. Thank you, Nico. Take care. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the third day of the Land of the Crescent festival. This is Volkan Bozkaya. I am the co-founder and the CEO of Digi and we have a publishing brand, PC game publishing brand, which is called Next in Game. You can find us also in the festival. I will be your host today, and today I am here with the co-founder of Stratera Games, Dora Özsoy. Welcome, Dora.
Hi, thank you.
Okay, today actually we will talk about the post-mortem of Stratera Games, and we will mainly focus to the release process of Cardboard Town. So let's start fast. Actually, you just released your game. You made your full access, full release yesterday.
Yeah, so the 1.0 came out about like 25 hours ago,
Okay.
so it's also new. Data is just coming in. We are trying to understand what's happening. Yeah, we finally released the game.
Okay, great. And how do you feel right now?
I mean, I am still a little bit disoriented actually, because like all of the stress and chaos and expectations and just facing the outcome, everything, like it's also new. But the players like the game, so it's all good. Yeah, the short answer is I am fine. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm fine. Thank you.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. Okay, then let's jump to the starting point, and let's talk about the starting point of the game. When did you start? What happened during the process? As far as I know, you made first early access, then made the full release. What was the whole process? Can you a little bit explain it?
Yeah, sure. So like we are developing Cardboard Town for about 2 years from start to finish, and this is the first game I completely designed for the Steam. Actually, I was just designing mobile games until then. And the starting point was, of course, the idea. Like, I enjoy city builders. I really like the concept and idea of making a great city, people living in it, like managing it. But I don't like the tiny bit details of it, like, you know, adjusting text or throwing out pipes and electrical wires. I don't want to do the dirty work. I don't want the real life part of it. I just want the city building fantasy. So that was my starting point, and I thought I really like card games, and that would be a nice combination, and I think it turned out to be true.
Okay, so you like city builder games, you like card games, so you combine them.
Yeah, that's just basically that's it. Yeah.
Let's put all together and make a meal with them. Okay,
Yeah.
great. And how did it start? With how many people did you start working on specifically Cardboard Town project?
Yeah, so if we are talking about like the basic, the consumer's product, talking about the game's core development, it's 5 people, and it's very basic. Like, everyone has one job. We have one developer, one game designer, one art director, and just one sound guy. Every team is made of 1 people.
Okay, great.
One person.
So
Yeah.
everyone has its duty, and they worked well
Yeah.
throughout the process. And how long does it take to complete it?
Yeah, as I said, about 2 years, but like the 5 or 6 months of it at least were just me throwing out ideas and like making a demo and things like that, like small things. The actual work took about a little bit more than 1 year, I believe. And of course, I'm just talking about the core people. If we include testers and translators and like quality control, everything, we are talking about a 50-person project instead of 5.
So as far as I know, for the game development process, the ideation is very important, and it takes a very long time to do it. In your project, on your team, I mean, who does that ideation? Who decides, okay, this will be in the game and this will not? Who decides?
Yeah, in the part of game design, this Cardboard Town is my brainchild, so most of the ideas and like the choosing of what should we do is mine. But of course, we are a team, and sometimes we vote on it. Sometimes my gut is wrong. For example, I didn't want the cardboard design at first. I said like I don't think paper is gonna good look. I think the city should look a little bit more realistic or at least low poly, something cute. And I was so wrong, but I chose to trust the art director because like he knows this thing better than me. So we went with it, and I think it was a great decision.
Okay, okay. So let's talk about a little bit about the genre.
Yeah.
So why did you pick this genre? Was that your first city builder game or first card game, or did you try something similar before and after that you put something on it and at the end you come to this point? How was this process?
Yeah, not really, since when you say this genre, it's kind of mixed in Cardboard Town.
Okay.
Like, is it a card game? Is it a city builder game? Is it a board game? Is it a roguelite game? A lot of tiny little genres in there, like it's a soup. So there is no specific reason for us to choose that. I just, as you said before, I like card games and city building games, like Smash. That's it.
Okay, let's put them together and do it. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That I understand.
I think that's a
part.
great way of approaching creating new ideas for games, though.
Yeah. But you said it took like 6 months around like that.
Yeah,
right?
but I'm
For the ideation
talking
part.
about the complete design process of it. Like
okay.
I was
With
thinking
every
about the
detail.
game for longer than that.
Okay. So, okay, then let's talk about your older projects. How many games did you produce or publish?
So we have about 5 mobile games and 3 Steam exclusive titles. Yes, this is the 4th.
What are the names of those Steam games?
Oh, that's too much, but we have Havsala Into the Soul Palace, a little like a 2-hour, 3-hour nice puzzle with a lot of content.
I think it's also in the festival,
Yeah, it's in
right?
the festival with 70% off. So if you like mythology, I
can
don't
buy
know
it.
how is it pronounced, by the way, in English, sorry. But yeah, you can buy it if you like puzzles and stuff. It's a hard puzzle game. It requires a lot of reading, but it's really challenging and fun. So we have Lighthouse Keeper, that you are the lighthouse keeper.
Play a lighthouse keeper,
Yeah.
okay.
It's a chill survival game that didn't work out really well. It was kind of a trial project for us, like what can we do in Steam or what can we do in Unity even. The programmer of that game after that developed the Cardboard Town, so it was like a learning process for us. It's not a very good game, but we learned some things along the way. Yeah. And finally, Meow Express is the one week game jam child of ours.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So you also participate to jams and produce games.
No, we just
from
made
that.
our own jam.
Okay, your own jam. Great.
We said like, okay, team, we have 7 days, let's go.
Let's jam.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the question will be the experience you learned from all those games, but especially from the Cardboard Town. What was the most, let's say, unexpected thing that you face during the production period of the Cardboard Town, and how did you solve it?
Unexpected, I guess I should say localization, because this was the first game that we have put out that has more than 2 languages. Before then, it was just English and Turkish. That's it. So for the first time, we tried to localize it, but going out in early access, then trying to patch in those languages again with the new content is a really complex cycle. And I think what I learned is for the next time, until 1.0, I'll just hold localization, just go with English.
Okay.
And when I finally have the product that I can just send to the translators or the translation agency and then go forward with that. Because with every update, when you try to update a lot of words and cards and different mechanics, it both gets complicated and expensive for everyone.
And localization is actually more challenging process than everyone think of, because more language you want to put in the game, then you need more people to deal with it. And with every single one of them, you need to check if the translation or the job done is done right. Work done is right. So one of the most important things we also face during our localization processes is actually whenever you send someone, okay, you give the words to the translator, you localize the game, you put it again in the game. But the most important thing is the thing we call LQA. So you need to send back the game to the translators, and they really need to dive into the game and play it a lot. So if they don't do it, one of the stories that we faced, for example, with one of our games called PYLAB, it is also in the festival, by the way.
Yeah,
you
and
can find
it's
it.
also a little cute city builder. So like we are brother games right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, brother games. And in the PYLAB, the LQA process, I mean, we didn't had time to make the LQA, unfortunately. We did for Asian languages, but for the European ones, like German, Spanish, French, we couldn't do it. And on the release day, the space button is translated as not like the space button, but the space.
Yeah, like the galaxies
like
and
the
stuff.
galaxies.
Oh my god! Okay.
Not like the button.
Yeah.
So that's why, yeah, it was a fun story. I mean, in the end, it didn't change much. We didn't get any negative comment, negative reviews at least. But you can face something like that. So the localization is actually really important.
Yeah, but and that's a very critical process, because when you display your game as available in German in Steam, and the first thing the player sees is a wrong translation, is like a horrible first impression.
Yeah, yeah.
It feels like such a little thing in game development to localize a game, but it needs to be correct because it represents the wholeness of the game.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I mean, if you publish any game to Steam, the most negative reviews comes from the bad translations,
Yeah.
from bad translations.
We have some of those on our first day. Like we also didn't have time to correctly test everything out because like hundreds of cards and everything. Sometimes it just slips by.
Yeah, I can understand it. That happens to all of us,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Whatever time you pick, like it's never enough.
Never enough, never enough. Always something is missing.
Yeah.
And the main thing from this conversation is please put extra effort to localization, guys.
Put extra effort to everything. Like whenever is your release time, 1 hour before that, there is something to do. Like something.
Always. Okay, then. Another important thing other than localization is actually festivals.
Yeah.
So
We are
what
currently in one.
yeah.
Yeah, festivals.
Festivals. Yeah, okay. So currently next week actually there will be Gamescom.
Yeah.
I hope you will be there.
I hope so. I already canceled my flight, but maybe the last minute the visa will came and we'll just catch on a plane and be in Gamescom.
Okay, let's hope so. Let's hope so.
Yeah,
And
maybe.
what do you think in general about the festivals? There is also, for example, Next Fest, one of the most important thing for indie games actually, from the Steam side. What do you think about the festivals? Did you participate them?
Yeah, we actually came out with our demo in the Steam Next Fest, and it was so helpful for us. Like a lot of YouTubers played the game, Twitch streamers were noticing the game. We had an article in Kotaku and PC Gamer. Like we didn't do any of that press. We didn't even have a social media person at that time, and we gained so much discoverability. And we connected with a lot of players. A lot of players played our demo. So it was really, really helpful for us. And for this Crescent Fest, I have discovered personally a lot of Turkish games myself, and I connected with new Turkish players, and I'm also hopeful in Gamescom too. Let's see.
Yeah, okay. So for the viewers also, I mean, if you also develop some games and plan to put it on Steam, Next Fest will be your #1 priority,
Yeah,
actually.
and don't rush it, because like being in the like top 50 of a festival is so important. Just wait the next festival if you must.
Yeah, that will be, I mean, that will be your only chance. You only have one chance to participate to Next Fest, so use it wisely, let's say. And also, if possible, I mean, you need some budget, of course, but joining offline events like PAX or Gamescom would be also helpful. We will also, by the way, be in Gamescom this year with 3 games, and all of them are currently here in the
Which
festival.
ones? Like PYLAB is the one, I guess?
PYLAB is the one that we mentioned just now. The second one will be Castle of Alchemists.
Ah, yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, that's also like tower defense, RPG action.
Yeah, it's a very interesting game, by the way. I had chance to play it, and it feels both like retro and
Yeah.
fresh. It's a very interesting
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
Well done on that.
That's also performed really well, and we, I mean, received good reviews about it. And the last one will be actually that's not on sale. I mean, it's only you can find the demo of it only. It is Toyshire. That is also a tower defense. I think we love tower defense.
Yeah, who doesn't?
I just noticed it. That's also a tower defense game. You play with your toy soldiers. So it
Like
has
a little army man, the green ones.
The green army ones, yeah, exactly. And it has a familiarity thing. And with those 3 games, we will be also in Gamescom. And if hopefully you are able to come, Cardboard Town, I guess, will be also in Gamescom. So we can also say that. Okay, then you have another thing you do in your life. Actually, you are a YouTuber, you are an influencer. Okay, let's just talk about that. First of all, is it challenging for you to be both a YouTuber and a game developer?
I mean, of course, when is it easy, like doing 2 different jobs at a time? But yeah, I started my career as a YouTuber, and I collected the funds to create my own gaming company while being a YouTuber, so it's important for me. But of course, after the success of Cardboard Town and the Stratera games going bigger, I really make a lot less videos now, and my audience is kind of angry about it. But like that's what I want to do. That's life. I am like 20% YouTuber and 80% game maker now. Yeah.
So you are mostly focusing on the game development.
Yeah.
Since when is it like that?
Launch of Cardboard Town.
Okay.
After the success of that, I said I have finally. So before Cardboard Town, the company was in the negative. Like I was collecting funds from sponsors and YouTube and throwing that cash into the company. After the Cardboard Town, now it just kind of spins itself. So I focus on there.
So what you just said now, you earn something from YouTube actually, and you can put this on your game development job. So we can say, I guess, this is one of the positive things of being a YouTuber.
It's about having another source of income, of course. But I think the more you can do that with a lot of jobs or like renting some houses or anything. But the better part of it is having a community actually. Like there are people who want to listen to how did you develop this game, and they are like waiting to support you. Like publish your game, I'll just buy it instantly. I'll play it. I want to see what you have done. Having that community is a great plus, I believe. It's so good.
And is that also negative parts of being a YouTuber?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when you are a YouTuber, people don't take you seriously, which I can completely understand at this day and age. But like, it's whether it's the game that you make or the things that you say, people will assume, hey, he has followers, so his like game or argument is invalid. It doesn't matter. Like it can be inflated by their fans. There's a complication on that, but it's not a really big issue when you compare it with the support you get from your community.
But actually, in reality, I mean, although you have maybe hundreds, thousands of followers, you have a community, if the game you did is not performing well, if the content, if the gameplay is not very fun and entertaining, I don't think your community will support on that, even if you have a huge community. I mean,
exactly, yeah. People are very. I mean, of course, there is a minority that will support no matter what. Like, and thank you, even though it's not right. But as you said, like Lighthouse Keeper didn't perform well, but Cardboard Town did. The difference is development time, budget, experience, and a better product in the end.
Okay, great. And about the again Cardboard Town development process, what was the most important lesson you learned from the whole process when you think about all of them? What can you say?
Oh, that's a really hard question, like choosing one thing, one ultimate lesson you should know about making games. I don't think I have the power or responsibility to answer that, but let me think. I think teamwork is very important because when the subject is about making games, everybody is so passionate. Like everyone is in it for the fun. Like they want to create some real nice experience for the players. So sometimes when ideas clash, it can be very heated or like people can be stubborn. So being able to go with the flow and trusting the other guy is, I think, very important. Like I said in the Cardboard Town, I didn't want the paper thing, but I trusted the art director because I knew that he knew better than me on the subject. In his lane, I shouldn't intervene, even though I'm the co-founder and the company and the designer of the game. He knows better. I go with that, and the product is nice. So people staying in their lane and like respecting others' knowledge and ideas is very important, I believe.
I mean, I guess also for every single team, they need to find their own management method.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, for your case, you decided to give the decisions according to seniority of this topic, for example. For some other team, I mean, the team might consist of only one people, and that person should take all the decisions. For example, another example might be the Shovel Knight. On Shovel Knight team, I think the team's name was Yacht Club or something like that. I don't remember, but something like that. The developers of that team consist of from 5 people, and the thing they did was every single person has the same right, and whenever someone didn't like even a single topic, they just discuss it hours long, I mean hours and hours, and if someone don't accept it, they don't put it. I mean,
like everything has to get 5 votes.
5 votes.
That's crazy.
And everyone has a veto right.
Wow.
And after I mean, that's why the production period, I guess, took like 3 years for Shovel Knight, but in the end it was successful. So we can say that this method can be also useful. But they also say that now there are 10 people, and whenever they need to hire someone, all of 10 of them goes to discussion with the single person, and all of them ask questions, and all of them have to accept that person. So that's an interesting method.
Getting a job at there must be hard. I mean, yeah, nice.
Yeah. So,
you should be proud if you work there. Well done.
So the summary of this thing is actually you need to find your own way, I guess, dealing with the issues.
That's absolutely right.
There isn't any one single rule to rule them all.
Yeah, but I think the one thing is common in there, and it's the like the synergy. Like it has to go.
You need to find good teammates. We can say that, I guess. Okay, great. Then, as a last topic, maybe we can discuss your other current projects and maybe the next projects in your mind.
So we are not really ready to discuss our newer games right now, but let's start with the future of Cardboard Town, because we are planning on adding more cards and more resources and more end game buildings maybe to the game. Like we are on 1.0, but we want to continue supporting it, and we think it still lacks some features. We have 2 other games in the development right now. They are both single player. They are both more serious than Cardboard Town, is all I can say right now, because they have a lot of work to do.
By the way, we are also doing a project together, publish our next game.
Maybe we could talk about it.
Talk about a little bit. At the beginning of this year, I guess, we start talking about this project. The idea is actually, I mean, as the name suggests, publish your next game.
That's a very direct name, by the way.
It speaks
Can you
itself.
guess what we do?
So we want teams to publish their next game on Steam, and we try to help them as much as possible. So what we did until now, we first collect demos from the people, and in total there were like 180 teams, I guess. So that's a lot. It's also very good to find that there are so many Turkish developers here.
Yeah, but how many of them made it through the half? Like just the half point of the
Just
event
half point, I guess 60 of them
Yeah.
go until the end of the event. So the event was actually for the 6 week long. We gave them little quests for every week. Those quests were in order to prepare them to release their game on Steam. So, for example, prepare some GIFs for your game, or prepare your capsule images for your Steam page.
Like make some memes for social
Some
media.
memes for social media.
It was a
like
fun
that.
event.
Yeah, and all of those quests were actually preparing them to release their game, and all of them was one step. Those quests were bringing them one step closer to publishing their game to the Steam. So, as we said before, 60 of them were successful enough to complete those 6 week period. And currently, after reviewing their demos, playing their demos with something like jury, I will say, currently, I guess, like around 20 games are in the final phase. And with those 20 games, we plan to participate to the next Steam Fest. Next Steam Next Fest.
Yeah.
Okay, it will be on October. And currently, you are also playing their demos on your streams, right?
Tomorrow I'll play Torshire actually.
Ah, okay, great. So you can also check tomorrow Dora's stream on Twitch, I guess. So from my point of view, it was very good to meet so many developer teams and so many people. So as we said, 180 teams means
that's a lot of people right
a
there.
lot of people. And we try to reach them as much as possible. We try to make meetings with them. And I hope that will be the first of many. And what we aim is actually, like this festival, of course, try to bring successful developer teams, successful people, and try to make this Turkish gaming ecosystem more powerful.
Yeah, and we have talked about the compassion to make games. Like people are very passionate and they want to make games and they are having fun working on it. But you also have to focus on the business part and the publishing of your game. And people do not really realize that publishing the game is a very important and core part of making games right now. There are about like 12,000 games released
every year. Right.
Last year, I guess. Let's say more than 10,000, just to be completely right, like for the last 3 years, every year. And you have to stand out. You have to have a unique selling point. You have to have wish lists. You have to be talked about. If you just make a good game and just put it on Steam, maybe you will get discovered, yes. But in 10,000 games, you really have to stand out somehow, and publishing is that part. It's like creating an audio or creating image or game development. It's the core part of releasing a game right now, and some indie developers do not realize that. They think like, I'll just make some tweets, I'll just put on some TikToks and I will be discovered. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that most of the time. Yeah. You need professional help. This is a professional subject.
So actually, everything we discuss here, like localization, for example, is another thing you need to take into account. I mean, you can be passionate for developing games. You can also develop very successful games. But in the end, there are tons of things you need to consider, like localization or marketing or
Testing.
creating memes,
Yeah.
for example.
Yeah.
That's also important thing.
That's
And
hard, by the way.
yeah, and yeah, I mean, some people, some teams maybe don't like to create creative videos, don't like to create memes, or some people might, I mean, they don't want to have a TikTok account, for example.
Yeah, let's be honest. I mean, most of the developers and people like us, nerds, are not very social people. We need help on those subjects.
And on those parts, it would be helpful to get professional help from a publisher, from an investor, or an organization, an event like Publish Your Next Game. So if you develop a game, the main summary of this conversation can be you need to consider lots of things because there will be challenges. There will be things that you didn't think about at the beginning of your project. So even participating to some festivals is another thing. So I think if we keep talking about the game development process, we can find tons of another detailed things. So let's, I guess, cut it here. And if you need some extra information, extra support, extra help about those topics, maybe you can reach us. I mean, where they can reach you.
I mean, you cannot DM, but you can mention me on Twitter, and I will probably see, or should I say X right now?
Okay, X.
I will probably see it, and I also have a mail address there. And for the Publish Your Next Game, I guess we should mention Twitter accounts again.
Yeah, we have. You can visit our social media accounts, Next in Game accounts. Actually, you can also find me on LinkedIn, Volkan Bozkaya. You can directly message me, and you can.
So now you're just showing off because people cannot directly message me.
Exactly.
That's why you're mentioning.
But I don't have an X account or a Twitter account, so you beat me there. Okay, then I guess that's all. Do you have anything in mind to tell?
So thank you for listening, and I hope this was helpful. Also, thank you for playing Cardboard Town, or if you haven't, maybe you should try it because we are 30% off for this great festival right here, and thanks to the Bug Lab for organizing this stream and the event itself actually. Thank you to all of them, and enjoy.
Yeah, thank you to Bug Lab, and have fun.
Hello, dear viewers of the Land of the Crescent, Games from Turkey Steam event. We are very happy to be with you here again today. This is our last live broadcast of this whole program. And I'm very happy to be here with Galip Kartoğlu, who is one of the most experienced game designers and developers of Turkey. I am Oytun Kal, executive producer of Buglab Tekmer, the game incubation center, and also one of the instructors here at the game design department, Buglab. Galip is also one of our instructors, and I'm also very honored to have him today as our guest. And
it's also very nice to be here.
Thank you very much. In this broadcast, we will mainly focus on one of his early titles. Namely, it's a 2D arcade game. It's called Dual Blades. But it has also evolved into a series of fighting games, which continued with an Android version and also a cross-platform version. We will go too much into details of all these games and how it all started for him. And we will also listen to his inspirations and how he is nowadays continuing with his journey. Before we go too much into the details, I'd like to also thank to our team who made this event happen. First of all, our founder director, Güven Çatak, and also Cultic Games main founder, Can Oral, our main developer, Görkem Emrullah, and also I'd like to thank Murat Palta, the talented artist, for his beautiful modern miniature artworks, Anıl Çelik on our broadcast desk, and Çağrı Akgürt, Serhat Erkek for their support on all these audiovisual technical stuff, our research assistants, Volkan, Poyraz, and also many of our assistants here from our student club Bugzone, who have been helping us a lot greatly during this whole event, and we are happy to be with you here. This was only the first time that we have organized such an event, and we are looking forward to organize many more of these in the upcoming years. So thank you very much for your great interest. We have been hearing a lot of great reviews from your side too, and we are looking forward to bring you more of the Turkish talents and to introduce them to you, bring them together with the global audiences. All right, let's get started, Hocam.
Yeah, let's get started.
I'd like to first start with asking you how it has all started for you, actually, because as far as I know, you have studied computer science, but was it always your intention to become a game designer, game developer, or was it also somehow a childhood dream, or how would you describe it?
Well, that's a tough question, actually. But the time that I took the poison, I say, when I just decided to be a game developer, I think it was during my intermediate school times. Because my father used to run an arcade, and I used to be the son of the boss of the arcade, and the children there know that I was the son's boss and were asking me to give them free tokens because I always had tokens in my pocket that was bought for free. And during those times, I think it was early 90s, and the arcades were the Turkish arcades actually was spread with the Street Fighter games. Street Fighter 2 actually was very popular in that times, along with Final Fight and the others. So I just brought up with playing those games. Especially, I played all the Street Fighter 2 and bootleg versions of Street Fighter, and I then asked myself that, there are people who are making these games, and why would I earn my life making these games? Right. So I was just, as a child, I was a bit idealistic. I'm still is an idealist, and I decided that okay, I want to be a maker of this game. So what should I do? And I then continued after the high school. I decided to go computer science because in order to make games, I need to learn how to code because the games are all made with code and you have to write code in order to build games. And I was also trying to draw some things because I'm going to do sprites and other stuff I would be a full-fledged game developer, and then I saw that okay, I should start with computer science and then continue with making games. So I solely finished that department in order to be a game developer. So
We didn't have any game design departments back then, or any kind of universities like this. So, but your parents were maybe easier to convince since your father was also in the game design environment, huh?
well, I can say they were supportive because there were no industry when I decided to be a game developer, or at least trying to show my interest in games. Actually, they didn't understand at first, and actually didn't support me, and I actually didn't care about that too much because I was just focused on doing something that I liked. And yeah, that was a bit tough in my younger years, especially when I started university.
But in time, you have started to prove yourself also to them, I believe, because in 2002, when you were a fourth year student of the computer science program, the Dual Blades has been released, and it was probably the first Turkish console game that was ever released to Game Boy Advance consoles. And here we have a micro version of a Game Boy Advance.
Second version actually. The first one is a bit bigger, and it was just critically acclaimed of not having enough lit display. This one is the lit version of Game Boy Advance micro. It is a smaller size, and the game is actually, back then we had cartridges that the game was released in a cartridge. So we have some history lessons and materials.
I mean, it's a quite big, bold decision, very courageous, and at the same time a little bit a crazy decision, I would say. I mean, it's still a great game history. I mean, even for Turkey, it's very, very unique actually, and we are really proud to have you here with this kind of a product still.
Well, actually, I had no choice because I was just want to work in a gaming company, and in that time there were no gaming companies in Turkey, no industry at all. And I just met with Dinç Interactive, and I was in the second grade of university in computer science. And I was actually doing this game in named Slashers with Visual Basic, which is very unready tool to make games. And then I showed Mevlüt my game, and he said, let's make this game a Game Boy Advance game, because Game Boy Advance just released, and there were few games, and it was a good opportunity to make an adaptation of this game to Game Boy Advance. And then we just immediately started making it.
Yeah, and if we take a look at the device again, I mean, in the previous versions of the regular Game Boys, we only had these two buttons, A and B buttons, but then with Game Boy Advance versions, they have also added these left and right upper trigger buttons, as far as I know. And for a game like yours, like for a 2D arcade fighting game, which would also require a lot of fast movements and a lot of button combinations, I think you have also benefited from these new devices too.
Yeah, well, actually we designed the game, Dual Blades, based on Game Boy Advance's capabilities. So I already had in mind, because I'm very into fighting games, and my most favorite series are Street Fighter, Guilty Gear, and Samurai Shodown series. And I always wanted to make a combination of those games, good size, and make into my ideal perfect fighting game. And when we started working with Game Boy Advance, I just started designing the game to work with fever control. So I just simplified the inputs as much as possible, and as much easier to play on Game Boy Advance. And when we finished the game, when we got the reviews, actually the most common part of the reviews were that game is very easy to play on Game Boy Advance. But of course the other things were subjected, and there were ups and downs. But in general, yeah, we specifically designed the game for simple control scheme.
You have already mentioned your background as a small child who was spending a lot of time in an arcade center, actually. Yeah. So that already answers the question how you were that much familiar with all those fighting games, actually. But what about the genre in more general terms, in more specific terms? I mean, the time for fighting games, is it over yet, or should we expect a comeback from that genre? What would you say?
Well, in those days, in 90s, in arcades, you play all the games, and there was not much. You can't be so selective about what to play. And in those times, the games were difficult. And especially for fighting games, you have to make some strange combinations with the arcade joystick and press a button to make a move. And we call that in fighting games design the input barrier. Because in order to start actually playing the game, you have to be adapted to your controls and all the combinations of the game, and you have to be doing them perfectly in the most timed manner. And then the tactical strategic part of the fighting game starts. So you just face that input barrier. And when we were playing those games in arcades, people were not so, you are not, saying that, oh, this game is too difficult to play. You just play the games, and they were fun, and it was a part of playing them with that control difficulties. And then the era of console games started, and today we play games with very simple control schemes, easy to adapt, and we have more casual players. And then this input barrier caused the casual players not to understand fighting games and drop them immediately. So the all fighting game community, we call them FGC today. FGC community is getting aging at the moment, and they're just stick to control schemes they used to play. And new players, new blood is not coming. So we have such a in the community, there's a lot of discussion about what to do with the casuals, how we can make them play the game again, how make them understand the inner workings of fighting games and have fun with them, because this input barrier is a very big problem. And then we had having easy button fighting games, starting with Fantasy Fight, and some games tried simplifying control schemes, removing the joystick movement capabilities, and then it started to be, you just press a button and perform a special move, and then input barrier fixed. Well, this is actually not happened, but recently there are some big movements, like the Riot Games started L Project, which is a tag team fighting game, and it is using the League of Legends characters as the fighters. So it is just in development a couple of years, and it is using this simplified button scheme. And you just press a button, and you don't have to do that fancy stuff to make the moves. And there are also Street Fighter 6, which is using 3 input schemes, which 2 of them is, they don't call it simplified, but modern controls. With modern control scheme, you can just execute the moves very easily. And they also have a dynamic control scheme, which use AI to just, do the moves automatically for you. It's just for fun. So there's also a movement for big developers to bring the genre into the table again and make them enjoy the fighting games once more. So we still have hope, I say.
And when you first started with this first game, with Dual Blades, by the way, there are a lot of beautiful artworks that were even prepared for the Japanese market, as far as I know,
this is for the Japanese version of Dual Blades, released in 2003.
And thank you very much for bringing all these kind of materials. We are really honored.
This is very, historical material. I am very afraid not to, bring them home safely. So.
And you have even brought some Turkish newspapers from them.
Yeah, we have some newspapers, but this is just for fun. I will just show one of them.
Back then,
I'm not sure if you're going to see them properly, but...
Yeah, back then you have mentioned already that there wasn't any Turkish game industry, to be honest, actually, and therefore...
This one actually a newspaper released in 2002, May. If you're Turkish, you can understand what it's saying, but I need to translate. It says, "Angard Lara Croft, Alperen is coming." It just shows how sense of humor of Turkish press, or I can say. It is just comparing one of the Jubilee's characters with Lara Croft. So I have
And
no
that should
comment
be-
about that, but it was fun those times that how the press can understand the situation in their own view.
Yeah, that should be a great honor.
Present.
But since you have already mentioned some similar fighting games, like fighting series that are quite famous still nowadays, and so what did you learn from your project? I mean, in which manners, in which terms did you get closer to your inspiration sources? I mean, what did you achieve with your game, and where did you fail, and what did you improve in your upcoming versions of your games?
Yeah. Well, as a developer, I can say your firsts always fail. I mean, whenever you do, your first fail. Second may be a bit better. Third may be a success, but first always fail. And I believe Dual Blades get mixed reviews. I was, as a young person, I was very, trusting the project to be successful because I've spent a lot of energy and time to do that game. But after the review struck, I just saw that the mistakes I have done. There are many reviews about the controls, there are about boxes, technical stuff like that. So most of the reviews said that the game is too slow, etc. And I then noticed that I like fighting games, I didn't know them well. Because there were more to them, there were more depth, and what people talking about them is sometimes is out of my scope, and I noticed that I didn't really understand the game genre itself. And then times changed, I started working in other projects, in other groups. I even worked in a company making mobile games, but when I say mobile games, it is Java-based games for S40, S30 Nokias. this one, the small ones.
And those were not really smartphones; they were just phones.
Yes, they were stupid phones actually. Not stupid, but we call them the block phones or whatever. And then I was as a member of another game development team, Zoetrope Interactive. We start working with Onur and Oral, my colleagues, and then we start making adventure games because I also love adventure games aside from fighting games, and it was a good idea to get together and start doing some things. And then after that, I actually gave a break to fighting games, a couple of years, more than a couple of years actually. But what I learned and my passion for fighting games didn't change, and yeah, that's basically how it changed. But if you're going to talk about slashers, then I can talk about this.
Yeah, why not? I mean,
because it is another
since you have
story.
already mentioned that you were working for the first mobile games, that has also maybe opened some good ways, good doors for you to be able to optimize your game also for mobile devices in the upcoming generations. So slashers, the power battle, is actually a simplified version of Dual Blades, if I'm not wrong, please correct me. And it has again improved graphics. And
yeah, I can't. Well, it is kind of improved. Well, yeah, it is actually. Okay, you ask question, then I will make.
Whatever, however you feel comfortable. But we might also talk a little bit about slashers. I mean, it is now a simplified version of the previous Dual Blades game, as far as I know. It's only playable by Android devices, and it does not have that 2D pixel art style anymore, but it has all of these characters that we already know from the previous games. And it is now freely available on Android store, but the final version that we are about to talk in the upcoming moments of our conversation is actually a cross-platform version of it. So
Yeah.
it is also, again, playable in mobile platforms, but it is also playable on both Nintendo Switch and also, again, as you can see in the Land of the Crescent event, it is available in Steam.
Yeah.
So, but we can continue with the slashers version actually. How was this
All right.
period for you?
Well, after the period, we just worked on Darkness Within 1 and Darkness Within 2 with sort of interactive. We actually failed again. I mean, I say failed because we didn't get the revenue and success from the games we were making. And actually we had a stop for developments as a group, and we were just gone to different ways, started our own works, whatever. And when I was working with another company, not related to gaming, I said, I want to make something. I want to make another game. I want to make a game again, because I was so, missing making games. And then I found that CD in my archive. It is actually the visual assets that we used to make Dual Blades. But in the CD, actually, all the graphics or the pixel art or things were actually done in very high resolution, and we actually done sampling them and then converting into paletted sprites. So actually, the original sprites and the backgrounds and everything were actually done in high resolution. So I just took the graphics and said to myself, why should I make a high HD version of Dual Blades? So all the graphics is actually the assets we used in Dual Blades, the Game Boy Advance game. So it is actually the same game, but I just decided to make the game more modernized. So the game was slow. I made a fast-paced game, and I just adapted the controls and everything to Android and touchscreen responsibility. And it's actually received very well by Android gamers. It just it just passed 1 million downloads in a couple of months, and people were all over the world giving me feedback and how well and fun the game is, and how well the controls are. It's because I was very picky and neatly working on the responsiveness, because touchscreen is not very fun to play, and you cannot mimic the gamepad feel with it. So I just tried to make it fun, because I just wanted to have fun, and I saw that the people are also having fun and playing the game well. And then the community grew. We had a lot of pro players playing the game much better than me. And they were beating the hell out of me when we were playing. And then we just started making, I just added the online capabilities, so they can be played between Android devices. So it was a very enjoyable time that I developed slashers, and it was actually a nice step up.
And I believe this has also motivated to continue with this project. And so the final version that we now see in Steam, by the way, I must also mention that even this version of the first version, the Dual Blades, is available within the Steam bundle. You can play it with an integrated emulator, right? Inside of
the game has an emulation module that emulates the Game Boy Advance game. Yeah.
So the title is now different. It's not Dual Blades anymore. You can find it as Dual Souls on Steam. And now the game has, this time I can say it, improved graphics, maybe. And also it has a great cross-platform availability thanks to the rollback netcode that you guys have developed and worked on. So one of the great successes of such a game is actually this kind of successful cross-playability on many platforms.
Yeah, it was always my dream to make a fun fighting game available to be played everywhere. I mean, I was thinking to myself that why would I play my phone and just challenge someone playing on Switch or another console or PC. So it was actually a good challenge for me to improve my skills as well. And well, not to be sound so technical, but role play game code is actually something really acclaimed by the fighting game community, because it really adds a lot to the gaming experience during online play. And I was also do that implementation to the game, and it was very well received. So in that regard, for technical point of view, I think game is a very good condition, and also it helped me to make a code base to maybe work on another project.
As you have mentioned, I mean, the fighting game lovers communities are quite stronger in other countries, like Japan is one of them. There is a huge culture around them. I mean, in Turkey, we are actually a little bit foreign to these kind of issues. There is not such a big fighter games community.
Yeah, we don't have.
And there have been a lot of good reviews also from those environments, from those magazines, journals in those countries. So the game was well received, and you have been working for these games also with some foreign artists, as far as I know, both in terms of sound, audio, and also graphics. Could you also summarize a little bit how you guys have managed to work remotely all together?
Of course. Well, when we started first, when I just released the slashers initially, I got a lot of feedback from other people who love the game, and they tell me that, oh, I want to help with the graphics, I want to make better artwork for you, oh, I want to make voice acting for you, and I want to make help with other stuff. A lot of people just try to contact me, and one of them is actually, we are still working. Chris is doing the animations and the artwork. So he's the visual lead of the game at the moment. And a lot of voice actors voluntarily contributed for the voice acting of the characters. So we are still working, and we are still open for fighting game lovers to just support the game in any way. And I am open to any submissions in that process.
I mean, just looking at all these visuals and the current state of the game is quite impressive, actually. If you would consider that this version that you had for Micro Game Boy Advance was only 4 megabytes, that was a really working game.
In back days, you didn't have much storage. I mean, the cartridge capacity we applied for is 4 megabytes, and this is a fact.
And now we have this newer version, which is also released for Nintendo Switch, and it circles back to where you have started, I assume.
Yeah,
and also,
Nintendo again. Welcome back home.
Steam players can play on PCs, and both Android and iOS devices can also play against each other. With
cross-platform play is available, which is, I think I feel complete as a, my dream is
nice.
Almost complete.
And
I can say.
Many of the viewers can already recognize we have the same characters, improved versions of them. Like these 11 characters, Alperen was one of them, which on guard Lara Croft was the news headline.
Alperen is the boss. I mean, he's the Han Turk who became immortal, and he's kind of tired of being immortal. So this is the reason for the tournament, from different timeline fighters coming across and beating the hell out of each other.
Yeah, for this kind of a game, could you also explain a little bit about the character design process? Because in some fighting games we see that many of the characters have some really detailed background stories, but that's not always easily manageable, actually, because sometimes you're also limited and also needed to prepare your characters in alignment with the mechanics, the fighting mechanics. So the narrative elements do not always play the main role, but you must first decide as a game designer to which kind of movements these characters should be doing with our inputs and things like that. Could you a little bit summarize the relationship between character design and game mechanics?
Well, with the character design, you are always, attracted with the idea to that. Oh, why would we have such a character like let's have a Ottoman character, or you say, oh, let's make this type of character. But when you start the design process, you have to be very careful about the gameplay. So I say you should first define how the character will play, and then you just put a skin, the design, over the gameplay of the character. If you do that in that way, it mostly works, because design is very important, and you have to be careful about which special moves is going to the character is going to have, what kind of reach is going to have, what kind of archetype it is going to present. Like, would it be a brawler or zoner, or these archetypes for fighters? Is it going to be a grappler? Is it going to be a glass cannon character? There are a lot of archetypes that you see in many fighting games, and then you start. Okay, then we use this idea with this character design and try to find a way. And then the animations and the drawings process starts. And after that, yeah, well, we are actually working Chris remotely. He's a United States citizen, and he's actually doing the animations based on our discussion. And after that point, I just took the animations, and sometimes I changed them, because whenever I first have an idea about how that will work, and I decide that won't be a good idea, so I can reuse the frames for that, and I say, let's Chris change this animation to something else, because this move will be very strong or very advantageous, or we can add another move this character while I'm playtesting. So it is actually a very meticulously tailored process from start to finish.
It's already a very strong IP, I believe, and I would like to hope that it will continue to be developed in further sequels, in further newer versions of the game. So we just hope, and I'd like to beg you, please continue with this series and let it make a famous Turkish fighting game series also in the future, in the upcoming years. I'd like to also...
Yeah, there's going to be an update actually very soon.
Nice.
We are working on. There's going to be a new character, and we're going to add a gallery mode. The gallery mode is going to have unlockable items with artworks and music and character voices from Game Boy Advance and slashers. Game Boy Advance version of the game and the slashers. So we're going to add good stuff. And there's also another idea to make a new version of the game, but this is still in design phase, so I cannot tell much.
You have already mentioned you are also part of another game design team, formerly known Zoetrope Interactive. Nowadays, Stormlink Studios is also with Orhan and Onur Şamlı. You are working all together. You are the tech lead in that company, and there you are also working and creating a lot of beautiful games. Many of them can also be found on Steam and other channels, and maybe some of them can also be found on consoles too.
Yeah.
So you are a very technical person, as we know. So you have even mentioned at some point that you guys had your own game engine at some point, and none of the currently existing free game engines were available back then, and you have created your own engine and built beautiful games with it. I mean, could you compare
just one game actually?
Yeah. Okay.
Just one game. Well, the story actually begins when I became a scholarship student for Game Developers Conference. But it is still available, guys. If you're interested, you can apply for it. It still exists. I just was selected as a scholarship student in 2005 and went to San Francisco to see the whole event. It was a very great experience for me, because I was assigned a mentor who was the actual tech lead in Cyan Studios, the makers of Myst series. And he was a very, very nice person. He was very, take good care of me and try to make me try to keep me active and talk with other developers and stuff. It was a great experience and also a great opportunity for me to grab some content which I cannot find in Turkey or access from internet. These were just books for game programming, game mathematics, and real-time rendering. This type of concepts actually I was very interested in. And since we just finished our first game, Darkness Within 1, It was a panoramic adventure game. It was a not real-time rendered game. And I was just thinking to improve myself in that field, and then the books I have bought from America, it really helped me to get it in the engine, and I started working on our in-house engine and actually developed the second game. This is actually Darkness Within 1. Yes, this is a panoramic adventure game where you just click hotspots and proceed. You know, it is not really real-time rendered, and there are fake shading techniques as well. And yeah, the second game, Darkness Within 2, completely made with the in-house game engine. I personally developed, and we used the engine just for Darkness Within 2, unfortunately. Because after Darkness Within 2, we didn't continue development for some time.
Okay, I see. And also there are some other titles like Conarium, which is also available on Steam and also for some consoles. I would like to also mention those kind of successes of Stormlink Studios. And since you are also one of our Unreal Engine instructors here, BugLab is one of those academic partners of Unreal Engine, but we are never ever limited, or we are never only promoting one type of an engine here at the BugLab. We must always say so that the project must align with the capabilities of the current engine. So this is also what your experience tells us, right? Like for the example of the slashers, you worked with Unity, as far as I know, right?
For slashers, no, I used Java for
okay.
but, no engine involved.
All right.
But with Dual Souls, I switched to Unity. I also considered using Unreal Engine first, but I then noticed Unreal Engine, unfortunately, is a bit too complex to make simple actions or simple implementation like that I needed for Dual Souls, and I then switched to Unity. So Unreal, you are not always the best solution. Sorry.
Yeah, and this comes from a very wise man, very experienced game designer and developer, and who is also one of our prominent Unreal Engine experts here at the BugLab. So, do you have any last words that you'd like to share with us? I mean, it's always an honor to have you here, and seeing all these historical elements from the Turkish game history is actually very proud-making for us. Thank you very much.
Well, what can I say? Thank you for inviting me to this very nice event. Well, what can I say? Well, I enjoy making games. I still continue making games. You actually summarized everything. What can I say else? Well, you can reach our games that we talked about here. You can support them and expect more from Stan Games, which is, you know, I'm developing the games in the name under, and Stormlink Studios in the future. Well, thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. And I would like to again thank you to all of you, all the viewers and all the contributors to this event, and all those gaming studios who have taken a part in this Land of the Crescent first Games from Turkey Steam event. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you again in the future.